Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Gaming Aroma podcast. It is Sunday the 23rd of February. It is me, it is I, your host KDB, back as always for gaming chat nonsense fueled by coffee. How are we all? Hope everyone's good. It's coming to the end of half term and it's been absolutely shite because fellow parents out there will know that half term you have to juggle work and your children or child in my case, and the weather's been crap the entire time. It's been raining, so it's been a bit of a mostly indoor half term, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm surviving, and I'm trying to get my head round going back to the normal routine tomorrow, because obviously it's Monday, so got to go back to work, the kids got to go back to school, and yeah, it's not really been as much of a holiday or a break. I had a couple of days off work, Monday and Tuesday this week, and we did get some nice weather on a Tuesday. We went to a beach here on the Jurassic Coast in the south of England, which was good. I live near the beach anyway, but there's, you go along the coast and there's all different types of beaches and stuff. So we went fossil hunting, found a 20 million year old dinosaur tooth, which is good. And yeah, just kind of been surviving the half term. Hope everyone has as well. The weather is also crap today, just to rub salt in the wounds. It was all right yesterday. It was kind of sunny yesterday, so that was all right. But today, yeah, it's another indoors day. It's a chill indoor day. To talk about video games and play some video games as well, maybe later, if I'm lucky. What have you been doing this half term? Americans don't really have half term. Again, I talked about my American listeners last week. This isn't spring break, is it? Because that's around Easter time. That's spring break. So is there like a national holiday at this time of year in America? I don't know. Let me know. But yes, what's on the agenda for today? Quite a few things. Well, yeah, there's kind of one big topic in the news, and there's a couple of small ones, and then I'm going to talk about gaming. First, though, let's start with a little Fantasy Critic update. As talked about and as kind of inferred last week, I am now sitting pretty at the top of the leaderboard because Avowed came out, and those high scores were finally allocated to my total, which means I am sitting in the lead with 29.27 points, and then second place behind me has 20.76 points. So it's a decent lead, but if one of the games I've got coming out, there's a few that aren't guaranteed to come out this year. Unannounced mainline Mario 3D platform, yeah, I think I've lost points there. Judas, which I took a gamble on, and Jason Schreier, gaming journalist, has since laughed at tweets to him about if this game's coming out this year. So that's two games I can probably cross off the list there. I just got to really hope that the critics are kind to South of Midnight, which is out, I think, in April. And that Assassin's Creed does the job. So they're the two big next big two ones coming up for me. Hopefully they give me a decent score. Kind of connected to this, during the week I did another guest appearance on the A Winner Is You podcast, the Draft sub-series, which is a show that I'm infrequently on a few times a year. We're now in our 9th episode of that sub-series. A Winner Is You is obviously David and Alex's video game club podcast, which they've been doing for a long, long time. David and Alex being my co-hosts on Gears Intel. And it's always good when I get to do the draft because it's a podcast that I don't have to really prep for in a big way. You just choose your games from the year that you think you're going to do well with. It's not like you've got to do big research for a review episode like on First Aid Spray or something. But that was really cool. But then we did an extra thing at the end where we picked 5 games coming out this year. So we did like a kind of mini Fantasy Critic draft for 2025, and whoever wins that gets another point. So I mean, it was either a bonus point or bonus 2 points. That latest draft episode is not out yet. I think it'll probably be out in a couple of weeks. maybe longer. I'm not exactly sure on the release schedule, but if you're not already listening to A Winner Is You, please do go and follow it on your podcast subscribe. I think I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to give up. What is the point? I try to do podcasts and I can't even speak. I don't know what it is. I think I know I've got this slight stutter. I know I have. Probably related to some kind of childhood trauma. But I just think I don't know, if I get too self-conscious of my own voice. I hate the sound of my own voice. It's like whiny and childlike. So fuck knows why you're listening to this. Go and listen to A Winner Is You podcast. Follow it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever place you enjoy podcasts. They're also on YouTube, and I'm on there sometimes. So there you go. That's another reason to go and listen to it. But yeah, sitting top of Fantasy Critic. Projected. It does do projected for like all of your total picks, and I'm currently projected to come second, but I still need to fill a gap in my list. So I've got a late bid that I need to make. So I'll talk about that maybe later in this episode because it kind of connects to one of the news headlines. But yes, video games. It's been a kind of quiet week for news apart from a couple of very big headlines which made a lot of people very, very angry. And I don't know if I'm going to talk about both of them. Where's my bullet points of notes? Yeah, so there's I don't know. I'll see how this first topic goes. So this is a topic. Hold on. Where's my article? Here we go. Let's click this. So this is to do with the hot topic, the hotly debated topic. AI, gaming and AI. Microsoft's Xbox AI era starts with a model that can generate gameplay. Microsoft Research and Xbox game studio Ninja Theory have partnered to create a new AI model for gaming. So the article is from Tom Warren at The Verge. If you're listening to this and you're tuned into the gaming landscape, you might have seen this doing the rounds. You might have seen a lot of very angry people as well. And I've kind of withheld my thoughts about it because I thought that would be a fun thing to talk about on Gaming Aroma this weekend. So what do I think? Well, before I talk about what I think, why don't I read the article? Because this is... There's a fair bit to take away from this, and I want to read it just to give some full context. So indulge me for 2 minutes. Let's have a sip of coffee. Let's fuel up. So, Microsoft Research has created Muse, a first-of-its-kind generative AI model that can generate a game environment based on visuals or players' controller actions. It understands a 3D game world and game physics and can react to how players interact with a game. This allows the model to create consistent and diverse gameplay rendered by AI, demonstrating a major step towards generative AI models that can empower gaming creators, explains Fatima Kadar, Corporate Vice President of Gaming AI at Microsoft. The Muse model was trained on a large amount of human gameplay data from the Xbox game Bleeding Edge, thanks to a collaboration between Microsoft Research and Xbox studio Ninja Theory, both of which are based in Cambridge in the UK. This partnership allowed us to closely collaborate with the game studio to understand what needs to be in place and how we can responsibly unlock access to a large amount of gameplay data, says Katja Hoffman, head of Microsoft Research Gaming Intelligence team. This allowed Muse to access the equivalent of 7 years of human gameplay, resulting in the model being trained on 1 billion image action pairs in total. Now, I know out there you might be falling asleep listening to this. There is a lot of tech and corpo speak in here. This announcement was kind of for investors, but they tried to frame it in a way where it was an exciting announcement for gamers as well. But anyway, so just bear with me because I want to get to the end of this. It's a milestone research project that's being published in Nature today, but as its early work, the model is limited to generating gameplay visuals at a resolution of just 300 and 180 pixels. That's up from the 128 by 128 resolution of Microsoft's earlier work on generative AI, and still far behind the 1080p resolution that is common among PC gamers. Microsoft has released a number of examples of the Muse model in action, generating gameplay and even allowing players to load visual elements into the game to prompt the model. This could be used for the early iteration stages of a game, but Microsoft is stressing this isn't designed to generate an entire game and replace creators. For Xbox, the principles that drive our approach to AI are to create more value for players and game creators, bring more games to more people around the world, and recognise that the development of a great game will always be grounded in the creator's vision and artistry, says Kadar. We believe generative AI has the potential to enhance this creativity and unlock new possibilities. We're nearly there. During a press briefing, Hoffman also demonstrated a real-time version of Muse that Microsoft is currently experimenting with to enable interactive AI-powered games. The demo generated game visuals on the fly in real time, and even reacted to objects being dropped into the game to change the environment. With the real-time gameplay only ran at 10 frames per second, 300 by 180 resolution, it's an early demonstration of what might be possible in the future. Microsoft is now exploring how Muse could help improve classic games and bring them to modern hardware. You could imagine a world where from gameplay data and video that a model can learn old games and really make them portable to any platform where these models can run, Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer says. We've talked about game preservation as an activity for us, and these models are their ability to learn completely how a game plays without the necessity of the original engine running on the original hardware opens up a ton of opportunity. Microsoft is also exploring how Muse can help game developers prototype games, or how teams could add new AI-powered experiences to existing titles. Some short interactive AI experiences will be available on Copilot Labs soon for people to try out. Microsoft is also planning to share AI tools and experiments with Xbox players and creators earlier, so it can make sure that our AI innovations address real problems and add new value to creating or playing with Xbox. While Microsoft is still in the exploration phase of AI gaming, it's also making it clear it's up to individual studios at Xbox how they want to use AI in games. As part of this, we have empowered creative leaders here at Xbox to decide on the use of generative AI. There isn't going to be a single solution for every game or project, and the approach will be based on the creative vision and goals of each team. There's already a lot of fear from game developers and studios about how AI could affect the creative process of making games, particularly at a time where barely weeks go by without layoffs in the gaming industry. We don't need to use this technology for the creation of content, says Ninja Theory studio head Dom Matthews. I think the interesting aspect for us that's exciting is how we can use technology like this to make the process of making games quicker and easier for our talented team, so they can really focus on the thing that's really special about the games, the human creativity. Article done. If you're still awake, well done. I just wanted to read it because I think there's a couple of things, there's a few things to go over. There's a few things to take away from this. And the reason I wanted to talk about it, I think, because this is mostly boring tech talk, primarily aimed at investors. You know, Microsoft wants to be seen as this corporation that's in the lead and at the forefront of AI and all these apparently wonderful ways it can help us. And now it's using Xbox as another way of showing investors that. And then they put out this video and thought they would kind of dress it up in a way that was interesting to gamers as well and say, look what we could do. And it was a really weird mixed set of messages. But the reason I was going to ignore it because it is mostly boring. However, I wanted to talk about it because I saw the internet have a meltdown. And I mean, there's a few things that irk me, but I thought, and I don't think I've really talked about AI and gaming on this podcast before. And I just thought that this would be a good opportunity to give some of my 2 cents on the whole situation. And a couple of things that really struck me is that one was the fact that AI continues to be this catch-all term on the internet. So AI equals bad, right? And there's also the other thing, which is this, there seems to be a big lack of awareness or bias that seems to ignore that everyone is using AI and will be using AI. I'll try and keep this kind of succinct because I actually think this conversation, the whole AI talk, would be good for a full episode at some point and maybe a chat with someone else. But for today, just a few thoughts. And I think the fact is, you know, AI tools are here to stay. This is not like NFTs. This is a technical revolution. And I think it's closer to something like the arrival of the internet. It's not a fad. I see a lot of people still trying to say it's a fad and this is not going to catch on. I wouldn't be so sure about that. I think it's already caught on. I, like many people out there, share the same concerns about ethical use, pushing out human creativity and like in favor of machines taking the roles of humans and stuff. I have personal direct experience and secondhand experience of corporations looking at these tools as purely a way to save money and increase profit, which is, ugly and horrible. But then at the same time, there's obviously plenty of great uses for AI tools. And yes, I keep saying tools because there's like 1,000 different AI tools. And this, like I mentioned, this notion that AI is a catch-all term is just kind of stupid. It means lots of different things. So I think when it comes to, repeatable tasks, it comes to refining some of those non-creative menial tasks and calculations that in the past have been all procedural, instead of the result of specialist skill or artistry, AI can be very handy. And I think that most people with sense get that and understand that, but it feels like there's a large portion of people out there who don't. And if you even dare to think or even say that AI can be useful in some sense, then you are basically a corporate apologist and you hate the human race. This is the extreme case of the internet. You always get this out there. I think in a broad sense, the worst case scenario with AI is Skynet and we all die at the hands of cyborgs. The best case is that AI finds the cure for cancer and I no longer have to do spreadsheets and write up data reports or manually type subtitles on the videos I make. I do hate things like Canva. Does anyone out there know what Canva is? Like, I work in marketing and I've seen obviously the explosion of Canva, and the combination at the moment of Canva and ChatGPT has turned local marketing into a fucking diabolical blur of like vomit. Everything is the same, everybody sounds the same, everything looks the same, everyone's using the same template, and it's like all the voice that's coming out of ChatGPT that all the local people are using on their Facebook pages, it's just all the same. So that's another thing I don't like about AI tools. But I know that Canva can be useful for people who have no skill in proper design programs and stuff. So when it comes to gaming and movies and visual media, I think most people, including people who work at studios and even some folks in executive roles, they don't want bots making stories, characters, props, costumes, etc. But when it comes to assisting with the millions of hours of programmers, editors, the creatives, the millions of hours that they spend typing out code or connecting nodes within software, repeatable tasks within stuff that they're already using, tasks which only require like movement or the pushing of a button to package their ideas. This is the kind of stuff that even the most staunch humanist and creative purist is kind of perfectly fine with, because it makes sense, it's helpful, it's useful, and you're not losing the human touch. And I know this is the case because I've spoken to these people personally, people who work at studios in the industry, gaming and filmmaking and commercials and just everywhere. And I've heard others say it that I haven't spoke to directly, but you see it online. And I think there's a lot of people out there that seem to be missing that. And creatives are always looking for new tools which will help them get their ideas made. And AI is becoming a part of it. But, of course, it absolutely needs to be managed ethically, tastefully, and in a way that's, transparent, economically fair. It's the type of thing which I think could do with some regulating, maybe even licensing. It's like the same way you're not allowed to drive a JCB until you've taken the right course and test. Maybe these are the tools that are going to need something like that. Because some of them can verge into an area of plagiarism, which is like the ethical thing I'm talking about. Getting consent, limiting what AI is trained on. All this stuff needs looking at, and some of it is already too far gone. But, if a studio is going to use AI, it would be cool to see them being transparent about how and where. And I think, and I realize I'm talking very broadly here. It's just, this kind of feeds into my final thoughts on this article and what Microsoft are doing. I think, it talked about the resolution and stuff in that article. I think the visual fidelity and visual pleasing end product of what AI can do will absolutely improve and undoubtedly produce things which to the untrained eye look completely fine. Despite how good it ends up looking, and some of it's out there already, I think that, to be honest, I think I at the moment can still always spot AI when I see it. There's been a couple of times where I've had to look very closely, but generally it's very obvious. But no matter how good it looks and no matter how good it gets, nothing will change the fact that it's only ever been that's a traced drawing or a carbon copy of what came before, and it will lack that human experience and inspiration which helps carve things that are, more profound. And not that everything has to be profound. This is like a big sticking point, because some things just need to be fun or helpful. But in that same respect, the subtle input of a skilled creative or a human emotion will do things for the viewer or gamer in this sense that they don't even know that they're experiencing. Details which, even only the people who put them know that they are there and why they're there. But it's going to have a knock-on effect to the audience at the end. A human also knows when to stop as well, and it seems at the moment AI does not know when to stop. So, if you ask for AI to give you water in a video clip, you get these hilarious results of just water spraying everywhere or spilling everywhere. Whereas a human visual effects artist knows where to put the water, how much of it to leak into a scene, and when to stop it moving. AI just wants to appease a request, whereas a human is generally, when creating something bigger, they're just adding this puzzle piece to this bigger picture, whatever the style or end medium is, movies, games, or whatever. Yes. But are we going to get a fully AI produced video game from things like this? Maybe one day in 50 years. Will it be good? Probably not. Will some people out there enjoy it? Definitely. And for this thing that Microsoft announced, I think there was a lot of confusion about what it is. From what I can see, all they're demoing at the moment is a thing that makes video. It doesn't make playable games. It makes footage of a game that you can manipulate and that can demonstrate a theme or an idea. So it's this notion of these tools being used to come up with ideas and stuff like that. But it's not something you can play. So I don't think this is taking anyone's jobs yet. And I can assure you, employers will always find work for employees to do. All the layoffs that are happening, they're not happening because of AI. But with the introduction of tools like this, jobs will evolve just like they did when the internet started to become a thing. And it's funny to see an article like this come out and an idea like this come out and everyone be like, oh yeah, they're just using AI to make games. It's like, no, that's not what this is. That's not what this is at all. This is a rendering tool. And obviously they want to get to a point where the tools that they've got can produce games or produce things. They'll probably want to start small with some shitty little mobile game or something like that. But yeah, I just thought that, because I'm interested in this stuff. I'm not obsessed with technology, but I'm very interested to see where technology goes. Microsoft were just talking about this quantum thing that they announced as well. It's weird to me that everyone's first reaction is just that this is bad. And it's like, no, there's lots of ways that this could help us. And also I'm very interested to see where it goes. Now, it's right to be, as I said, I've seen firsthand where businesses see AI just as a way to cut corners and to save money. And it's like, yeah, that's the bad thing. That's the negative side of it. But I don't think it's the thing taking people's jobs at the moment. Will it in the future? Potentially. But I also think other new jobs will be produced because it frees people up to do other stuff. So the preservation side I'm kind of dubious about as well. And that's like Phil Spencer was talking about how you can bring an old game forward even if you don't have the original hardware or engine, because AI can just kind of copy it. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. It's a bit of a slap in the face to actual preservation that's been going on, and, hard work put in by independent people and non-profits and the Video Game History Foundation and places like that. But then also I feel like if it's the only way, then yeah, I'd rather have that than nothing. But what you want is people like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo or whoever to be putting effort to preserve stuff. And I think we're in a place now where everything coming out now is preservable going forward, and it's fine. It's easily done. But that old stuff, when nobody was thinking about it and nobody thought anyone would care about it being around in the future, if the stuff, the hardware isn't around, and the only way to bring it back to life is to use a tool like this, I mean, fine. Yeah, it's not as good because it's not the original. It is just a carbon copy. But if there's no other way, it's better than nothing. Some devs have obviously kind of been outspoken about this, like, you know, calling it a load of shit and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I can see where it is. I can see where it is a lot of shit, and I can see where the worry is. And there was a funny line, I think, in Microsoft's press thing where they said, hold on, where is it? I've got it in my thing here. In its announcement, Microsoft says the Xbox team interviewed 27 game creators globally to make sure the research was shaped by the people who would use it. 27. Wow. In that case, they've got all the data they need. Yeah. So yeah, I just thought the reaction to it was a bit over the top. It looked like a cool mood board tool. And I've always referenced mood boards when it comes to AI. And now there is something to be said about the process of conceptualization and mood boarding and research and stuff. That is part of the creative process and what it can do to produce ideas. You want it to be human and all that. I've been a part of it many, many times in the past. I know exactly how it works. And I can see the sacred nature of that. The fact is, though, most of the time, very rarely in the industry are you paid to pitch on something. If you're putting together a pitch for your great creative idea, there's a couple of ways that might happen. Like maybe you're an individual at home, you're putting your idea together just in your free time and you send it out to people or whatever. But generally what happens is a studio, you know, an already set up entity will be approached by an agency or a publisher or whoever and say, look, we're shopping this idea around or this license around. Have you got any thoughts? What would you do with this? You've got 2 weeks to put something together for us. You're not paid for that time as a studio. Generally, you're tasked with coming up with maybe a quick test, some reference imagery, some designs, some story thoughts, you know, direction, all this kind of stuff. And everyone kind of gets together and pitches in and puts your pitch document together to show what your idea would be and the route you'd want to take. And that is stuff that takes time. You know, I've been a part of late nights at studios where you're doing this sort of stuff. And a tool like this can help processes like that. And it's like, well, it would be nice if we lived in a world where that wasn't needed and you're given as much time to do what you want for a pitch and everyone's paid for their pitches. And sometimes you are. Sometimes an agency will come with you and say, there's a small budget here for a pitch. Can you put it together? And you can spend a bit longer. And that's great. But a lot of the time, and certainly in my experience, you basically get a phone call or an email and it's like, we need this by Friday next week. We're presenting to, you know, the people with the money. Have you got any thoughts? And then it's all hands on deck. You put your pitch document together. And an AI tool that can conjure up some reference images or conjure up a demo video like this thing that Microsoft is talking about, I can see the value in that. And it's a change in the process. It's an evolution of the process. It opens up new ways of doing this kind of process and freeing you up to do other things. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to me. And I don't like that. I don't like that, as I said at the start, if you even dare to breathe anything about how AI can be helpful, you're scum of the earth, basically. And I see it a lot. And I've been subjected to it a lot. I've talked about it in the past, and I've had people think I'm literally abusing them because I've got some positive things to say about AI. And yeah, it doesn't really sit well with me, to be honest. So, and the other thing that annoys me while I'm here is people like to give Xbox a lot of shit when stuff like this comes out. When just last month, Capcom explicitly stated that they are literally using generative AI to come up with ideas. And I don't remember seeing any sort of outrage about that. Where's this thing? I had a link here. Here we go. Capcom experimenting with generative AI to create hundreds of thousands of unique ideas needed to build in-game environments. Prototype will reportedly reduce costs and speed up development. This is from January the 23rd. Capcom is experimenting with generative AI to create hundreds of thousands of ideas. In an interview with Google Cloud Japan, a technical director at Capcom who has worked on huge titles like Monster Hunter World and Exoprimal explained how the company is experimenting with implementing AI in its game and development process. One of the most time-consuming and labor-intensive parts of game development is coming up with hundreds of thousands of unique ideas, Abe explained. He added that a design for things like televisions require their own unique designs, logo and shape, including unused ones. We ended up having to come up with hundreds of thousands of ideas, he said. And this goes on and talks about efficiency, prototyping, using these AI models to help them come up with loads of stuff. I don't remember anyone getting angry about that. Whether you like it or not, generative AI stuff is in the games that you're playing today and will be playing going forward. That's just the way it is. And it's kind of get used to it, because this is here and it's here to stay. And it's not the reason people are being laid off. It's not. New jobs will come out of this, and new jobs and people who are currently crunched to death will be freed up to do other things, as long as I've said as it's used ethically, perhaps regulated. There's a million questions. There is a million questions, but like many people my age, we've been alive for this transitional period our entire lives. We've seen everything come in. We've seen the arrival of digital, of the internet, of mobile phones, smartphones, the way TV works. It's the same thing. And we're having to kind of suffer the growing pains period while it's all figured out. And I'm not a doomer when it comes to AI. I think, like with anything, there's going to be people that use it for bad and going to be people that use it for good. So you just kind of have to hope and put your faith in. With the rise of indie games and indie studios and people who are a bit more ethical and not having to appease, the billions of profits for investors and stuff, there's plenty of ways it can help these guys out. So I'm interested to see where it goes. That was a really long fucking ramble on my broad thoughts on AI and this thing that Microsoft talked about. But hopefully you're still with me. Anyway, something that's not artificial intelligence, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 could be on the way. Marketing for the next Tony Hawk's game has kicked into gear after the series' official website began counting down to a reveal. The countdown appeared on TonyHawkTheGame.com on Friday, following their earlier teases and a Call of Duty update. The countdown ends on Tuesday, March the 4th, presumably when Activision announces a new title or remaster. However, it looks like the reveal is a remaster, since the phrase THPS34 countdown was reportedly discovered in the website's code. Also, the date is 3 and 4 as well, 4th of March. So, Iron Galaxy, the studio behind the PC version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, is also named on the website. The studio worked on Killer Instinct and Rumbleverse, in addition to co-developing the remastered Crash and Spyro trilogies. A new Tony Hawk game has been teased numerous times in recent months, the most recent coming early this week when pro skater Tyshawn Jones stated on a podcast he was going to feature in an upcoming remaster. And I think Tony Hawk replied to a tweet as well with an eye emoji, where basically in Call of Duty a TV screen within the game had an advert for this. And I'm very excited about this. I love those original Tony Hawk games, so I just wanted to give a quick moment to shout out on here. The original games are a big part of my childhood, certainly 1, 2, and 3, but then even like Underground 2, and I liked Project 8 as well. Project 8 is the one I think had Jason Lee as a presenter in it. So, I'm a big fan of the Tony Hawk's franchise, and the 2020 remake of 1 and 2 that came out was incredible. It was basically perfect. It's a great way to play the games. And everyone always wanted 3 and 4 remasters to come out as well. So, and 3 is a really strong Tony Hawk's game. So it's very exciting to see that they're finally coming. And this also got me thinking, because even though I love that 2020 remake, does anyone remember that I think in 2015 it was, they brought out they already remade Tony Hawk's 1. Tony Hawk's HD, right? I think this is Xbox One days. Here we go. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD is a 2012 skateboarding video game in the Tony Hawk series. Yeah, so they already remastered Tony Hawk's 1, and I remember I played this to death. God, Xbox 360, didn't... I swear I remember playing it on Xbox One, but maybe it was playable on Xbox One as well. Either way, yeah, I loved playing it, and it's a game that I bought, and I remember I bought it digitally. I don't think it actually came out in physical format. And what's funny is this game is delisted and deleted from everywhere. I bought this game, and this is one of the games that I often cite when people talk about preservation and stuff. It's like, oh, you never lose your digital games. It's like, yeah, not really, but there are very few specific cases where it absolutely does happen, where a game hasn't come out in a physical format, but and then the digital version gets delisted, so you can't get it. And I'm sure there's quite a few out there, and it's particularly with things like when the eShop closed down, there's like 100 games on there that are just gone now that you cannot get anymore. But Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, I remember playing it for hours, playing it with my friend at the time, and we would just be... Yeah, it felt like such a perfect throwback. And I would love to have still had that in my collection, but I can't. I don't have it because it's been delisted, and that really pisses me off because I paid for that, and that's just been stripped away from me. And then when, Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 came out in 2020... that appeased me a little bit then, because it was amazing, but I was still annoyed that I lost the original HD remaster. But I can't believe this was 2020 that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake came out. 2020, 5 years ago. September 2020. Okay, so it's not quite 5 years, but this year is 5 years. That's mad. But I'm very excited about a new Tony Hawk's. Like, I'm going to be all over that. Like, I will be... Yeah, I'll be buying it day one. I'm very excited to see the reveal. I hope it's out this year. It's if there wasn't enough games to play this year already. I did at one point spend a period of time trying to collect lots of different Tony Hawk's games as well. I do own quite a few, like on the PSP and stuff like that. But there's some weird ones that came out with like a skateboard peripheral as well that you stand on. I never actually played that. Kind of interested to check it out at some point. Since I read this announcement, I've been thinking about Project 8 a lot. I don't know if that is backwards compatible. Project 8, back compats. No, none of this. This game is not backwards compatible. No old Tony Hawk games have been made backwards compatible due to licensing. That is bullshit. eBay. It never came out on Xbox One, did it? It was just 360. Tony Hawk's Project 8 360. $9.99. I'm getting that. I'm getting that right now. Yeah. I loved that game. I love Tony Hawk's. Game change, sort of culture shifting, right? I'm somebody like many people out there, like I got into skateboarding because of the games, and I skated for a while. I couldn't do tricks or anything, but I loved cruising around, and I still have my longboard to this day. To this day, as if I've had it. A friend gave me his longboard a few years ago, which I love cruising around on. But I'm a bit too old to be doing a kickflip or a shifty McTwist or whatever it's called. I don't know. Very excited. Let's play some Tony Hawk sessions. Let's play some horse if you're out there. Last but not least, Marvel Rivals. Despite its big success, Marvel Rivals director and others have been laid off. Yeah, I saw a funny meme going about this that was like, create a bad game, fired. Create a good game, fired. Create a massively successful game, believe it or not, fired. I'm not laughing at the people losing their jobs, but yeah, there was obviously, again, this is another one that a lot of people got very angry about. I think if you look into it, it's to do with redundancies and restructuring. It's not, nobody was fired. for their work. I mean, okay, you can say they're fired, but it's just technically it's just redundancies. I think NetEase are moving all of their production out of America, and this is 6 people that lost their jobs, which is really shitty. But it's not the people who made the game, which I saw a lot of stuff going around. The people who created Marvel Rivals have been fired. No, that's not the case. This was a design team based in Seattle, which was part of their, like, a big game like this, they will have teams spread out because it makes things a bit easier in terms of speaking with Marvel and stuff like that. So, but apparently they were contracted for a certain amount of time, and the contract was up. And it was we're not renewing the contracts. The game is off the ground. The game is designed. Most of their work is kind of done. So, yeah, it's never good when someone loses their job. But just to refer back to my own experience as well, like, I come from a time where in the creative industry, being a contracted employee, being a contract worker, it's just what everybody did, because that's how projects work. They scale up and scale down. It's like working on a movie. Movies don't film 24/7. You're contracted by the studios when production is happening. Certain parts of the team are needed and they're not. And hopefully you hope the industry is booming so well that there's always something to move around and something to work on. So you can move. You do 3 months here, 3 months there, and these people get paid very well for it, And this was at a time where I've contracted a bit, but when I was salaried at a studio, this is for context, this is an animation studio, and we worked on various things in the industry. I got paid nothing compared to the contractors that came in, and I would hire them, and I'd have to. I feel like I was being fleeced the entire time because I helped them, with their salary requests and stuff like that. And I used to think that I wanted to go back to freelancing. I did go back to freelancing for a while as well, because you just get paid like 4 times as much because you haven't got the safety, I suppose, of a salaried job. But and I should say, like, I kind of believe that I think as a studio and as a creative entity, you'll generally get better for the most part with a core team that builds up synergy and works together. But it's a funny old world. Not everyone wants to buy into your creative ideas. So are you owed stuff for that? I don't know. It's a big conversation. But yeah, so Marvel Rivals is obviously a massive success. I haven't played it. I'm not interested in playing it. 6 people were made redundant, and it was a very doom and gloom headline news. I'm not sure it's the doom and gloom that people made it out to be. These people will seem more than capable of landing on their feet. They also seem quite not happy about it, but nobody was like massively critical about NetEase from the quotes. They were just like, had a great time working on the game, but such a weird industry and have now been let go. So yeah, I don't know. It's a funny one. And it wasn't the game's director, as I said. It seems to be a director of a design team in a certain part. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure it won't be the last layoffs we see this year, unfortunately. I am very, I hear myself when I'm talking. I'm very sympathetic to people losing their jobs. I think they've probably been paid very handsomely for their work. I'm sure they will be fine. I think that about does it for the news. There's a few other things. PS5 Pro is underselling the PS4 Pro. Is anyone fucking surprised at that? Maybe because the PS5 Pro is completely pointless and it costs 700 quid. So yeah, good one with that, Sony. Yeah, that about does it for the news. There's a few other things, but I can't be bothered to talk about them today. Let's move on to what I've been playing. And before I get to the main thing I've been playing, let's first talk about my trip to CEX, because on the previous episode I mentioned Uncharted PS3 franchise, or PlayStation franchise. I finished Uncharted and loved it. Went to CEX on Monday with my kid. He bought Ice Age 1 and 2 on DVD, and I got Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 for the PS3 for £3. No, £2.50. One was £1, one was £1.50. It blows my mind, to be honest, that I was able to walk into CEX, and I've had issues with CEX in the past. I remember during the pandemic and the PS5 shortages and stuff, they were absolutely taking the piss with their prices, and they still do now and again. I know that they look at eBay and they think, we can just get what some random person on eBay is charging for this game. But sometimes if you think like the Uncharted series, this box office franchise, premium franchise from PlayStation, if you've never played them like me, you walk into CEX and you can buy the first 3 games for under a fiver. That is obscene. That is in a good way. That's insanely good value. And for a half term, which has been shitty weather, for me to walk in there with my kid and he picks 2 movies, he gets Ice Age 1 and 2, and I get 2 games for less than a fiver. I'm made up with that. Like, that is, I was so happy coming out of CEX with those games. I couldn't believe the Uncharted games were so cheap. And I messaged David about this, David Smiley from Gears Intel, and A Winner Is You. And I know he listens to this show sometimes. And I messaged him and I was just like, it's so funny you think about how gaming itself, how expensive these games are when they come out today, how expensive the new games are. If you just wait, gaming is unbelievably, insanely, horrendously cheap for what you can experience. If you're a generation behind, if you're 2 generations behind, and you just want to play the big blockbusters, the games where there's not, I'm sure there's rare gems out there that get marked up with massive prices, but if you want to play all the big heavy hitters, all the big franchises like Uncharted, Spider-Man, God of War, Gears of War, Halo, Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy, like, I just reading these top franchises off the top of my head, because so many of these games were produced, they're not highly marked up in price, and you can walk into CEX, buy 3 games for a fiver, and you've got $500 million worth of blockbuster games to play, production price wise, hours of entertainment for nothing. It's insane. As long as you've got the hardware to play it on, of course. And I have a PS3, and I know lots of people still have their PS4s and stuff. And so, yeah, despite my up and downs and back and forth with CEX, and this is another one, I think I want to do a whole CEX episode at some point. Try and speak to somebody who works there. If you work at CEX and you listen to this, please give me a shout. I want to have a long conversation. If you work there or if you have worked there. Because, yeah, ups and downs with them in the past, but for someone like me who doesn't have a great load of disposable income, to walk in there with my kid and for us to come out with all that entertainment, it's just, yeah. I don't know how you can fault that, really. And the games had their cases and their manuals, and it's just, yeah, it was a lovely, lovely old thing. But what have I been playing? I've been playing Avowed still. I mentioned my first impressions last week. The extended version of that now is I am over 20 hours. I think I'm about 24 hours into the game. I have been cramming this game because it's been half term and I've had some time off work as well. I've had a bit of extra game time this week, which has allowed me to play more and more of Avowed, which I've been absolutely loving, really. Talking to friends on the First Aid Spray Discord and the people I'm doing Fantasy Critic with. And also David has just started playing Avowed as well. Eric, my podcast buddy, has been playing Avowed. Eric from Tapes from the Waste and Starfield Sandwich. Lots of people are playing it and they're all kind of having a similar experience. And the biggest takeaway is the fact that despite this is a bit of an RPG light in some senses, the combat is incredible. It's so fun to play as a game. Which is perfect for people who maybe aren't looking for 100-hour, decision anxiety ridden RPG fest. This is way more video gamey, and I think I'm in the latter third of the game now, and some of the story is fine. It is interesting. The characters are stronger than the story itself. Whereas some of the characters are quite funny and and have good personalities, and there's good variation across them. The big overarching story it's fine. It's there for me. The reason I'm playing is the exploration, the platforming, the combat, and finding chests and unlocking them and getting materials and upgrading my bow and my dagger and my magic book. It's just been having an absolute blast with Avowed. So. But I can feel myself, I want to push through it now. I want to wrap it up. I've been playing it for over 20 hours, and apparently you can finish the main campaign in 25 hours. But I've been doing a lot of side quests as well, so I might ease off on some of the side quests and just power through, because I want to get it done. There's other games I want to get to and things I want to play. I've got Uncharted 2 and 3 to play, for fuck's sake. And that is honestly it. Like, I haven't played anything else. I've been playing Minecraft with my son as well. I posted a picture on Blue Sky of the Xbox Series X I made because I'm such a hardcore fanboy. And I was like, what's really easy to make? I know, a rectangle. Or I guess it's not a rectangle, is it? Because it's a 3D shape. What's a 3D rectangle called? Oblong? Is that right? God. 3D rectangle. Cuboid. Oblong. Is that even a shape? Yeah. An oblong is a 2D shape that has two pairs of parallel. So yeah, a rectangle. A cuboid is a 3D rectangle. Or a cube. So that was easy enough to make in Minecraft. But yes, I'm probably going to play some more Minecraft today. But I really don't mind my son playing Minecraft because I know it gets a lot of hate from people. It can be a very calming game. I think it helps. It kind of makes his brain work in lots of ways. Like, I see the stuff he does on it. I'm like, how are you doing this? How are you building this? Makes him think about how things go together. And then he loves the exploring and making portals and fighting the dragon and stuff. And stuff he builds by himself, it blows me away, honestly. So, but yeah, going to get through Avowed. I've got some other game recommendations from people. I want to get to Citizen Sleeper as well, because that's another short-ish game. Citizen Sleeper 2 is on Game Pass as well as 1. Looking ahead with Assassin's Creed coming out, which I think I am going to check out, depending on reviews. And yeah, just hoping I continue to storm ahead in Fantasy Critic. But I've taken up enough of your time. Thanks as always to listening. Come and follow me on Blue Sky, where I post random stuff about gaming, about movies, and share the content that I make. Just put out a video for Gears Intel as well, talking about I got some fan and community responses talking about if E-Day is coming out in 2025, so go and watch that if you're into Gears of War. And First Aid Spray. I talked about the next gen thing we got coming up. I'm not sure what I'm doing next for First Aid Spray. I need to check in, see what's going on. And yes, the Winner Is You podcast, which I will be on soon. Go and follow their feed now so you do not miss that episode. I will be back. Next week. I may not be here next week because I'm away. I'm away in Bristol next weekend for a friend's birthday, 40th birthday. Oh my God. But if I can record an episode early on the Friday or something, I will. But I'll see how the week goes. Busy week at work. Hope you have a good, wonderful week wherever you are. Sorry for my long rambles today. This podcast is, of course, just my outlet to vent and think out loud and speak and react on things I've seen during the week. So hopefully I haven't offended anyone with my talk about AI and how it might be useful in some senses. And if I have, let me know. I'd love to talk to you. Send me a comment, subscribe on YouTube, like the video, subscribe in your podcast feed of choice. Please give a rating or review. Give me 5 stars, not 1 star. I'd like 5, please. Thank you very much, everyone. Till next time, stay safe out there. Bye. Bye.